Hello, Tim Karen here from Mortgage Choice in Kingsley. It's time for a HomeBuilder update. I guess the first thing to say is that we still don't know exactly how it works here in WA. There are states of Australia where we do know how it works. And I've tried to get my head around that. I've tried to get my head around what progress has been made in WA, and I've been talking feverishly to lenders over the last week in particular, but over the last 8 weeks in general, trying to understand how they're dealing with it. The reality is nobody really seems to know. There's one lender that's actually released a policy in 3 states of Australia about how it works. 3 different people at that lender who really should understand enough to be able to explain it to me and have lending experience cannot. They don't know either. I think everyone's just kind of flying by the seat of their pants at the moment. So what I do know is that every state of Australia has now, state and territory I should say. For the rest of this video, when I say state, I mean state and territory where applicable. Every state has signed the National Partnership Agreement with the federal government. And what that means is legislation has not been introduced to make HomeBuilder happen. Unlike what we saw with JobKeeper, for example, where legislation was introduced. There's 2 pieces of legislation that were relevant that I'm aware of, just on JobKeeper alone. Legislation was not passed for HomeBuilder. No laws changed allowing governments, for example, or treasury departments in various states to do things that they weren't able to do before. In contrast to that, if we look at the first homeowner grant in WA and how that works, and think about the fact that HomeBuilder was meant to, and Building Bonus also was meant to work the same way as the first homeowner grant. What happened when the first homeowner grant introduced was, in WA, an Act of Parliament went through. So there is a First Homeowner Grant Act that governs how the first homeowner grant works in WA. And one thing that's really critical about that is it allows the Office of State Revenue, or as of 2 weeks ago, according to a customer of mine who works there, Revenue WA, as they're now called, it allows Revenue WA to pay the $10,000 first homeowner grant money directly to the lender. And what that means is the lender knows that at a certain part in the process, when the slab goes down, for example, in the case of a construction, they are going to receive that $10,000. The lender is going to receive it directly, and knowing that they are going to receive it directly from Revenue WA means they are confident, in the case of almost every lender, to make those funds available to the customer when they need them to purchase the land, in the case of a house and land package, for example, or a land and construction loan. So even though the bank hasn't received that $10,000, they know they're going to directly get it themselves, and they know they're going to be in control of that money, and so they are happy to advance it to the customer when the customer needs it in order to use it as what we generally call deposit, or funds to complete the transaction. A couple of weeks ago, Revenue SA, the South Australian government, released their rules on how this works, and I was just reading this morning and realised there's something critical I'd missed. I mean, nobody else really seems to be talking critically about this, so everything I know is just my own investigation. The journalists seem to be missing the point. And I'm kind of wondering why people aren't talking about this, but I guess it's because they don't know. So in South Australia, contrary to what I've said to a few people in the last couple of weeks, the lender is an approved agent of Revenue SA, which means in South Australia, as far as I can tell, Revenue SA can pay the money directly to a lender. So when you apply for HomeBuilder in SA, the lender is in a position where they know they're going to receive that $25,000 directly from Revenue SA, and therefore it makes sense that they can make it available to the customer up front, and therefore the customer can use that money as funds to complete the transaction. It isn't just bonus money afterwards. It therefore makes sense to me why one of our banks has announced a policy in ACT, Tasmania and South Australia that says they can use the grant as funds to complete. It also makes sense to me that that's not the case in WA, and may not be. Reading up on how things work in the ACT, I can't find anything that says how the money moves, whether it goes directly to the lender or whether it goes directly to the customer. Reading up on how things work in Tasmania, I'm pretty sure what I read before was that the money can be paid directly to the lender in the case of a loan. So at least in those 2 states, I have an explanation for how this works. In WA, on Friday last week, our rules came out. Our state government released, our Treasurer, Ben White, released the application form for both HomeBuilder, which is the $25,000 federal government grant, and Building Bonus, which is the state government grant. And you may be in a situation where you qualify for one or the other or both of these. And you may be in a situation where you're a first-time owner and you qualify for all three of these, or two of them, or something like that. The rules that came out from Ben Wyatt, from Revenue WA, I should say, make it very clear. Well, the application form itself, which is one application form to deal with both of the grants we have here in WA, the federal government HomeBuilder and the state government Building Bonus. That application, there's one application form that deals with both of those grants, and you can fill that out and apply for one or the other or both of them. That application form does not mention lending at all. It's as if lending is completely irrelevant. On the state government website that talks about these grants, there's an FAQ in the Building Bonus that specifically says, will the money be paid to the lender if a loan happens, or something to that effect? And the answer is no, the money will be paid to the applicant. So it's very clear that that Revenue WA has actually thought about this and decided, no, the money's not going to be paid to the customer. Sorry, the money's not going to be paid to the lender, it's going to be paid to the customer. So I started asking more questions and found out from a source I trust that essentially what's gone on in the WA government is the decision not to rush through legislation in WA like they have done for the first time owner grant many years ago. Well, they probably didn't rush that through, I don't know how long it took them. But not to rush through legislation now that allows the funds to be paid to the lender. And therefore, there is no law in WA that allows the funds to be paid to the lender. That's why they're going to be paid to the customer. Apparently that decision was made on the understanding that enough lenders were going to be able to somehow use the grants as funds to complete anyway, that the grants would still have the intended purpose here in WA. I can't prove that to you, but I believe that to be true, based on somebody I know investigating for me. So right now I don't understand how the grants could be used in WA, because if they're not paid directly to the lender, let's say you qualify for $45,000 worth of grants, both HomeBuilder and Building Bonus, and those grants are not paid to the lender, they're paid to you after the slab goes down. How is the lender comfortable taking the risk of advancing those funds for land settlement when you might not turn out to be the sort of person that is willing to give that money back to the lender and reimburse them afterwards? My expectation of how lenders work is there's no way they would do that without putting all of the risk on you somehow. Nobody's been able to clearly tell me how it can work in WA with respect to that. And yet, from many of the conversations I've been having, I expect it to still work somehow in WA. I suppose the only reasonable position I can take at the moment is it may be a long time until we know how this works, or until we find out for sure that it doesn't. So if you qualify for these grants and you've been hoping to use them as deposit, I don't have any realistic hope that any time soon, I do have hope, sorry, I don't have any realistic certainty that I'm comfortable for you to rely on, that these grants are able to be used as funds to complete the transaction anytime soon, let alone with a wide selection of lenders so that you can get a good deal. So I think you need to be thinking about if there's another way to get this to work. That's probably the only way to retain any land or building contract you've signed if you're getting close to the end of your finance clause. If you can get more time, time is golden. From my perspective, any day now, next week, the week after, tomorrow, today, I might find out from a lender how they are going to make this work, or that they're not going to make this work. And at that point, I can give you more clear advice to make decisions. But this is the latest of my knowledge, and I believe I know more about it than most people in finance at the moment, because everyone else I'm asking doesn't appear to have even thought about these questions, even when they work for a lender that's announced policies about it. So I hope that helps you think things through. I hope that answers any questions you've got right now. But as always, I welcome more questions. And if you need help making a decision about what to do, happy to have a chat. Thanks very much.